You ever notice when someone says, "I'm sorry," but you feel worse instead of better? That's not an accident. That's not them messing up their words. That's intentional. A fake apology is a strategy. It's not about healing, it's about control. Think about it when someone says, "Sorry you feel that way." What just happened? They didn't admit fault. They didn't acknowledge what they did. They pushed the weight right back onto you. Now suddenly you're the one overthinking, replaying the situation, asking yourself, "Am I being too sensitive? Did I take it wrong?" That confusion is the point. Because if they can get you stuck questioning yourself, they don't have to change a single thing. That's not an apology. That's manipulation dressed up in polite words. And once you learn to spot that pattern, the game changes. You stop biting the hook. You stop carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. And you realize not every "I'm sorry" is actually about being sorry. Sometimes it's about keeping you quiet. A real apology feels different. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to wonder if it's sincere. You just know. Because it's clear, it's direct, and it owns the damage without conditions. When someone looks you in the eye and says, "I was wrong, I hurt you, I shouldn't have done that," there's no wiggle room, no blame shifting, no hidden dagger in the sentence. That's accountability. Compare that to, "I'm sorry if you felt that way." That's not ownership. That's a dodge. That's like saying, "The problem isn't what I did. The problem is how you reacted." And when you hear that, understand this: they're not taking responsibility, they're handing the weight back to you. A true apology doesn't put the work on your shoulders. It shows humility, it shows growth, and it doesn't need to be dressed up or sugar-coated, because the person saying it actually means it. And here's where most people get trapped. Someone gives a fake apology, and instead of stepping back, you start arguing with it. You try to explain why it doesn't feel right. You go line by line, breaking down what they said. You start pleading for them to see your side. And what happens? The whole conversation flips. Suddenly, you're not talking about what they did anymore. You're talking about your reaction to it. You're stuck defending your feelings, and they've neatly slipped out of the hot seat. That's the trap of a fake apology. It's designed to pull you into an argument where you can't win, because the more you explain, the more they twist. Think about this: if someone tells you, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt," and you come back with, "But I was hurt, that's the point," what happens next? They'll say, "Well, I didn't mean it like that," or "You're just taking it too seriously." And now you're chasing them in circles, trying to prove your pain is valid. And let me tell you, the more you chase, the more powerless you feel, because you can't force someone to admit what they refuse to own. You can't drag the truth out of someone who's committed to dodging it. That's why you don't argue with a fake apology. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already given them the power to control the narrative. You've stepped into their arena, and their arena is built to make you lose. They don't have to fix anything, they just have to keep you spinning. That's the playbook: deflect, confuse, minimize. If they can get you loud, upset, or desperate to explain, they win. Because now the focus isn't on what they did, it's on how you're reacting. And here's the part people don't like to hear: arguing with someone who's not being real is wasted energy. You're not dealing with honesty, you're dealing with performance. And when someone's performing, every word you throw back is just another cue for their next line. They already know how they're going to respond. They're ready with the excuses, the halves, miles, the shoulder shrugs. You can pour out your heart, and they'll still look at you like you're speaking another language. That's not because your words aren't powerful. That's because they never intended to listen in the first place. So what do you do instead? You recognize it for what it is. You pause, you breathe. You don't match their energy, you hold your own. Because the second you argue, you're showing them they still have control. But when you stay calm and steady, when you don't take the bait, something powerful shifts. You show them, without raising your voice, that you see through the act. And when you see through it, They can't play the same game with you anymore. Let me put it like this. Fake apologies are like quicksand. The harder you fight inside them, the deeper you sink. But if you stop thrashing, if you stand still and plant yourself in calm, you stop sinking. You stop being dragged down by their manipulation, and that calm, that's your strength, because calm isn't weakness, it's power under control. Calm says, I see exactly what's happening here, and I refuse to be part of it. Now I'm not saying it's easy. The urge to defend yourself is real. The need to explain your pain, to prove you're not crazy, that's real. But the more you argue with someone who isn't giving you honesty, the more you hand over your power. And you've already given enough. You gave trust, you gave patience, you gave them the chance to make it right. Don't give them your peace too. When you stop arguing with fake apologies, you reclaim something important, clarity. You stop chasing closure from someone who never intended to give it. You stop fighting for validation from someone who's not capable of giving it. And you realize you don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need their approval to trust yourself again. Because your worth isn't tied to how well someone else admits their mistakes. It's tied to how clearly you can see the difference between truth and manipulation. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The next time someone says, I'm sorry you feel that way, you won't take the bait. You'll hear the dodge, you'll recognize the game, and instead of arguing, instead of spiraling, you'll hold your ground. Calm, steady, untouchable. And in that moment, you'll realize you've already won. And here's the real shift. Once you start seeing these fake apologies for what they are, you stop treating them like conversations, and you start treating them like performances. Because that's exactly what they are. Rehearsed lines, practiced delivery, all meant to make you think the problem is solved when it's not. When someone says, I'm sorry, but you, or I didn't mean it like that, that's not an apology, that's a script. And the moment you recognize the script, you stop playing your role in it. You stop feeding the drama. See, manipulation only works if you believe you're in a real dialogue. If you think, oh, maybe they didn't mean it that way, or maybe if I explain better, they'll understand, then you're already locked into the play. You're on their stage under their lights, reacting exactly the way they need you to. But when you pull back and say to yourself, hold on, this isn't real, this is just a performance, something powerful happens. You step off their stage, you step out of their spotlight, you stop being the audience clapping for the same old act. And the second you stop playing along, you take the fun out of their script, because they can't control you if you're not reacting the way they expect. They can throw out the same tired lines, but if you don't bite, if you don't argue, if you don't beg, if you don't defend yourself, they've got nothing left to work with. Their show falls flat, their mask slips, and that's when you see the truth. The performance was never about fixing the relationship. It was about keeping you confused enough to stay quiet. But here's the beauty of recognizing a performance. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to expose it. You don't even have to call it out every time. You just have to see it. Because the second you see it, it loses power over you. A magician's trick only works when you don't know how it's done. Once you see the strings, once you see the mirrors, you don't fall for the illusion anymore. That's how it works with fake apologies. You hear the line, you see the dodge, and instead of feeling that rush of anger or that knot of self-doubt, you just think, got it. That's the act. And then you hold steady. Calm, collected, untouchable. You don't need to clap. You don't need to boo. You just stop being part of the show. And the less you play along, the more their performance crumbles. And this is where calm becomes your secret weapon. Most people think strength shows up as being louder, sharper, quicker with a comeback, but real strength, it's not in how fast you clap back. It's in how steady you stay when someone's trying to shake you. Calm is what throws manipulators off their game, because they're expecting you to blow up, to get defensive, to start explaining yourself. That's their opening. The moment you react, they know they've got you on the hook. But when you stay calm, when you hold your ground without raising your voice, you take away their script. You leave them with nothing to work with. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone try to argue with a wall? They push, they prod, they shout, and the wall doesn't move. Eventually, they run out of energy. That's what calm does for you. It makes you unmovable. It makes the other person realize their usual tricks won't land. They can't guilt you. They can't gaslight you. They can't drag you into circles because you're not giving them the reaction they're fishing for. And calm doesn't mean you're ignoring the issue. It doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you're choosing not to let their performance dictate your state of mind. Calm says, I see what you're doing, but I'm not stepping into your chaos. And that's what makes it powerful, because chaos feeds on more chaos. But calm ends the cycle. Calm protects your energy. Calm keeps your power where it belongs, with you. And here's the part people miss. Calm is not passive. Calm is active control. It's a choice you make again and again to stand firm instead of being dragged. And every time you practice it, you train yourself to become harder and harder to manipulate. Because once someone realizes they can't rattle you, they stop trying. They either step up and get real, or they step back and fade out. Either way, you win. And part of staying unshakable is knowing this: you don't have to accept every apology that's handed to you. Somewhere along the way, we got taught that if someone says sorry, the polite, kind, proper thing to do is nod and say, it's okay. But it's not always okay. And you don't owe anyone your forgiveness just because they threw 2 words in your direction. A fake apology isn't a gift, it's bait. And you're not required to take it. Boundaries are what protect you here. A boundary is simply saying, that doesn't work for me, and standing by it. It's not about punishing anyone. It's not about being cold. It's about respecting yourself enough not to let someone hand you crumbs and call it a meal. Because when someone gives you a fake apology, they're not offering reconciliation. They're offering convenience. They want things smoothed over without having to do the work. And your boundary says, no, I'm not going to carry this weight for you. And let me be clear, setting that boundary doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just silence. Sometimes it's you not engaging, not nodding, not pretending it's fine. Sometimes it's you walking away from the conversation instead of getting dragged deeper into it. That's still a boundary. That's you choosing not to reward behavior that isn't honest. The power in boundaries is this: they remind you that you're not obligated to heal with someone who won't even admit they cut you. You don't have to make peace with someone who refuses to make things right. And the moment you stop accepting fake apologies as enough, you raise the standard for how people treat you. Those who care will rise to meet it. Those who don't will reveal themselves. Either way, you stop being manipulated by empty words, and you start standing in the kind of respect that only boundaries can build. Here's something most people don't realize: closure is overrated. We grow up thinking that for us to move on, we need the other person to finally admit what they did, to apologize the right way, to look us in the eye and say the words we've been waiting for. But the truth is, some people will never give you that. Some people don't have the courage, the humility, or the honesty to own up to their actions. And if you keep waiting for them to hand you closure, you'll be waiting forever. That's why clarity is more powerful than closure. Closure depends on them. Clarity depends on you. Closure is saying, I can heal if they make this right. Clarity is saying, I can heal because I see what this really is. And that shift changes everything. When you start valuing clarity over closure, you stop needing that final conversation, that perfect apology, that magical moment where it all suddenly makes sense. Instead, you begin to trust what you've already seen. If their apology was fake once, it'll probably be fake again. If they dodged responsibility before, they'll likely dodge it tomorrow too. And if every time you walk away from talking to them you feel smaller, more confused, more drained, guess what? That's not closure you're missing, that's clarity showing up, trying to tell you the truth. Clarity doesn't sugarcoat. Clarity says, they showed you who they are, believe them. Clarity says, you don't need more words to know what your gut already feels. And once you have clarity, you don't have to stay stuck in the endless cycle of waiting, hoping, chasing. You get to step out of that loop. You get to stop playing the role of someone begging for scraps of honesty. You take back the power to say, I've seen enough, and I'm moving forward. And that's where real strength comes in. Because walking away without closure is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It means letting go of the fantasy that one day they'll come back with the perfect apology that heals everything. But clarity reminds you, you don't need that. You don't need them to fix it for you to be free. You just need to be honest with yourself about who they are and what they've shown you. And here's the beauty. Once you embrace clarity, your peace is no longer in their hands. You're not waiting for a phone call that may never come. You're not replaying conversations in your head at 2 a.m., wishing you'd said the perfect words. You're not standing at the door waiting for someone to finally knock with the truth. You're free because you realized you don't need closure from them. You only needed clarity for yourself. And when you live from that place, manipulation loses its grip, because manipulators thrive on your need for closure. They know if they keep you chasing that apology, they can keep you hooked. They know if they dangle just enough half-remorse, you'll keep coming back, hoping this time it's real. But clarity cuts the string. It says, I don't need more from you to know where I stand. And that's when they lose their power over you. Clarity gives you the courage to stop reopening doors that keep hurting you. It gives you the vision to stop mistaking fake apologies for progress. It gives you the peace to move forward, even without the perfect ending. Because the truth is, you don't need the perfect ending. You just need the strength to write a new beginning. And here's where the real breakthrough happens. You learn to step back emotionally. Because that's what breaks manipulation at its core. When someone throws a fake apology at you, they're counting on your emotions to do the work. They're banking on you feeling guilty, on you second-guessing yourself, on you being so desperate for peace that you'll take whatever crumbs they toss your way. That's the hook. But when you can detach, when you stop needing their words to make you okay, you pull the hook right out. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you shut down or turn cold. It means you stop giving them the power to steer your feelings like a steering wheel. You stop letting their half-hearted sorry determine your peace of mind. You start seeing it for what it is, a move, a tactic, a play in a game you don't have to participate in. And once you see it that way, you don't react the same. You don't rise and fall on their words. You stand steady. Think about how much freedom that gives you. Instead of spiraling into what did they really mean? Or maybe I should explain one more time. You can just breathe and think, that wasn't real, and I'm not picking it up. That simple shift saves you hours, days, sometimes years of running in circles. Because manipulation feeds on your need for approval. It feeds on your hope that this time they'll finally get it. But when you detach, when you stop needing that approval, they lose their fuel. They can't twist your emotions if you're not handing them the keys. And the truth is, the more you practice this, the stronger you get. At first, it feels almost unnatural not to react, not to chase after understanding. But with time, you realize that emotional detachment is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the ability to say, I care about myself enough not to let someone else's performance decide how I feel. And that's powerful. That's the moment you stop being someone who's easily pulled, and you start being someone who can't be moved. Because once you detach, the game stops being fun for them. They can throw out the lines, they can put on the act, but if you're not hooked emotionally, if you're not reacting the way they need you to, they hit a wall. And that's when you know you've broken free, not because they changed, but because you did. And here's the thing, when you stop falling for fake apologies, when you stop letting manipulation run the show, something amazing happens. The people who value honesty, who value real connection, they notice. They rise to meet you. Because healthy relationships don't survive on performances, they survive on truth. A real friend, a real partner, a real leader, they don't hand you empty words to shut you up. They look you in the eye and take responsibility. They show you with their actions that they care more about the relationship than protecting their own ego. And when you've drawn that line in the sand, when you've made it clear that only honesty gets through your door, you attract a different kind of person. You attract people who aren't afraid to admit they messed up, people who see accountability as strength, not weakness. And here's the best part. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to pull it out of them. They bring it to the table because that's who they are. That's the reward of refusing manipulation. You stop wasting your time chasing apologies that aren't real, and you start building your life with people who show up with truth. And let's be honest, truth isn't always pretty. A real apology might sting because it forces someone to admit they hurt you. But that sting builds trust. That sting builds respect. Because at least you know you're not being played. At least you know you're standing on something solid instead of sinking sand. So pay attention to who rises when you stop accepting less. Because the ones who care about appearances will fade, but the ones who care about connection will step forward. And that's how you separate the people who were only there to control you from the people who are willing to grow with you. That's how you start surrounding yourself with honesty, with depth, with relationships that actually make you stronger instead of draining you dry. And at the end of the day, this is what it all comes down to. You decide what influences you, nobody else. Manipulation only works if you allow it to. Fake apologies only have power if you let them in. The moment you stop handing people the keys to your peace, the moment you stop letting their truths and dodges control your emotions, you become untouchable. Because influence isn't about what they say. It's about what you choose to believe, what you choose to carry, what you choose to give weight to. You get to decide, do their empty words sit in your chest all night, making you question yourself? Or do you set them down, knowing they were never yours to carry in the first place? Do you let their performance shape your reality? Or do you step back, see it for what it is, and hold on to your truth instead? That's your choice, and nobody can take it from you. And here's the power in that: once you realize you decide, the whole game changes. You stop waiting for people to do right by you before you move forward. You stop needing their apology to confirm your worth. You stop giving away control of your mood, your energy, your confidence. And that's when manipulation loses every ounce of its grip. Because they can't twist someone who refuses to bend. You don't have to be harsh. You don't have to shout. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to stand in that quiet confidence that says, I choose what influences me. I choose what I accept. I choose what I believe. And once you start living from that place, people realize real quick, you're not someone they can play anymore. You're not someone they can gaslight or guilt or sway with empty apologies. You're steady. You're clear. You're free. So when you put it all together, the pattern becomes clear. Fake apologies are never about healing. They're about control. They're designed to shift blame, to confuse you, to keep you quiet. But the moment you start seeing them for what they are, the moment you stop arguing, the moment you stand calm and set boundaries, you take all their power away. You don't need closure from people who won't give it. You need clarity for yourself. You don't need to carry their guilt. You need to detach and protect your peace. And once you do, something shifts. You stop being someone who can be pulled around by words, and you start being someone grounded in truth. And the people who are real, who are honest, who are willing to grow, they'll meet you at that level. The rest will fade. That's how you stop being manipulated. That's how you rise above the performance. That's how you become untouchable.